Hey guys, Casey Screams back here. I yell at people on the internet. Today, we are talking about how to get better at anything.
How to get better at anything.
For those of you who might not know, I do a live stream over at twitch.tv/Casey Screams back. And on that stream, I do what some people might call rah-rah music, screaming music. You might call it metalcore, you might call it rock screaming, but that's kind of my thing. And despite popular belief, you actually have to learn to do it just the right way. You can't just yell into a mic or it won't sound very good and you'll hurt your voice. It's something that I've wanted to learn for a really long time. And it wasn't until about a year ago or so that I really started to get better at it. And it got me thinking, why is that? How come I've been trying for years to get good at this and I've really only progressed in a noticeable way for like the past year or so? I think one of the biggest things that I did was I actually just kind of jumped in and I started. I feel like a lot of the time we get afraid of starting things. Like if you want to learn something, you actually do have to start, which is really intimidating because honestly, when you start, you're gonna kind of suck at stuff. That's just a fact. Like the first day learning something, you're not going to be an expert. And yet we get kind of frustrated about ourselves because we think that if we want to do something enough, we should just be instantly good at that. But when is that ever realistic? The answer is never. Another thing that I think is important is I started with some knowledge. Anytime that you want to get better at something, you have to have a little bit of guidance. You can't just make things up as you go. There are plenty of people who do that, but if I were to just make up how to scream as I go, I might be able to figure stuff out, but it's going to take a lot longer than if I get just a little bit of teaching, a little bit of wisdom to start out with that I can kind of apply and practice and kind of work into my learning. So I think the first couple really important things about learning anything, about getting better at anything, is you got to start with some knowledge, and you're going to kind of suck. So those are some hurdles that you kind of have to jump over at the beginning. But I think even before that, you should ask yourself, why do I want to learn this? Why do I want to get better at this skill? Because the reason behind what you're doing is a lot more important than what you're actually doing. For me, when I started screaming, the reason I wanted to get better was not just because it was cool, but I wanted to be able to encourage people. I wanted to be able to write songs and express myself in a passionate way with that kind of style of music that I loved so much. What's the reason that you want to get better at this? Are you wanting to start a new career? Are you wanting to be more financially stable? Are you wanting to express yourself? Is learning whatever skill a way that you relax? Take some time and figure it out, because if you don't know why, it's hard to have that motivation to keep going when things get kind of rough. Once you figure out why, and once you've actually started, how do you keep going? Because that's the freaking frustrating, I just can start a million things, but continuing and doing things on a regular basis, that's what actually gets that practice in. Practice makes perfect, right? So how do you keep going? The biggest thing for me was a schedule. It sounds really, schedules sound icky. I'm just going to be such a nerd that I schedule my whole life. If you're like me, that sounds really boring and dumb. Like I pack all my clothing in my suitcase inside of Ziploc bags level of nerddom. But here's the thing. Scheduling is no more than thinking about your time and being intentional with it and making sure that you will actually do the things that you want to do. You not only need to know what you're going to do, why it's important, but when you're going to do it. Because if you don't figure out a time for you to do things on a regular basis, chances are they're not going to rise to the top of your priorities. Because let's face it, practice, it's kind of uncomfortable. And if you have a choice between doing something that is comfortable and something that isn't, you're going to pick the thing that's comfortable, aka you're never going to practice again. So the reason why streaming was awesome for me is because it made me stick to a schedule. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I was in here practicing screaming, week in and week out. Another thing that helps is little goals. If you are looking at a mountain in front of you that you have to climb, it can be really overwhelming. But if you think about it in terms of take a step, climb up a rock, take another step, little goals, then you can accomplish those in maybe a couple days or a couple weeks, and it's not this huge, overwhelming thing. And here's an interesting way to look at it. Set one of your goals as practicing on a regular basis, because if you practice, you're going to get better. And you can certainly hit the goal of practicing twice a week, where you might not necessarily hit a goal of painting a masterpiece painting. The final tip, and this is a difficult one, accountability. If you want to do something, if you want to be better at something, tell somebody. Don't just keep it to yourself, because if you just keep it to yourself, you can pretty much just shirk that off whenever and nobody's going to attack you about it. Tell a couple friends and they can bug you about it and make sure that you're practicing like you wanted to. So, Here's how to get better at anything. You have to start. Start with some knowledge. Think about why you want to get better and set yourself up for success, for practicing on a regular basis. Set yourself a schedule, set yourself little goals, and tell people about it. And this goes from everything from learning how to paint to being better with money to breaking bad habits, and be okay with the process, because where you're at right now, that's truly where you're at. If you suck at something, it's okay. You can get better. So there you go, guys. Those are some thoughts that I have. If you have things to add to this, make sure to put them in the comments below. If you like this, hit like. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. My name again is Casey Screams Back. You can watch my live streams at twitch.tv/Casey Screams Back. I record these videos on Tuesdays. Okay, now go do stuff.